Welcome back to the Samantha Show. I'm your host, Samantha. You can call me Sam. Just don't call me Sammy. And I am here today with our 2023 Mrs. Ohio American, Megan Whiting. Megan, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I have been following Megan and her journey on social media as I am on my pageant journey now, my pageant experience, only 2 years into this, but have really admired Megan and watching her use her title for good and to really do something that is meaningful. So that's why I have Megan here today to talk about that and what that is. But Megan, I don't know if you got the lowdown, but I start every single show with the 3 things that people need to know. And these are just whatever you think people should know. And so can you kick us off with the first thing that the people need to know?
Yeah. So I know we're going to get into a lot of facts later. So I kept some related to what we're going to talk about, but a couple just hacks and opinions. So
Yes.
First of all, first and foremost, 1 in 6 people globally are affected by infertility. So
Wow.
More prevalent than what people realize throughout the world. So fact, you need to know that.
That is good to know.
2, it's a dishwasher drying hack. I know holidays are coming up. People are going to be hosting people. I know when we host people for holidays, I somehow manage to use every dish or tool in our house cooking dinner.
That's right.
So after you run your dishwasher, after you run it, if you let it sit there, you got to dry everything. It's like, well, if I'm going to dry everything, might as well have just hand washed everything. But as soon as it's done, you open the door, lay a towel over the door and close it back up and let it sit there for like an hour. And all that steam gets absorbed by the towel. So then when you go back to it, there's no condensation on the cups, the dishes, anything. You just pull them out, put them right away. So it saves so much time. And everybody needs to be using their dishwasher this way.
That is genius. Actually, my husband and his father own an appliance shop, and I think they need to be advertising this method here more in that. That or it's going to hurt business because they probably sell some high-end dishwasher that dries it for them. They're like, don't share it on the podcast. Don't share that. That's amazing. That's a great tip. Okay, I'm going to try that.
Good tip.
Yes.
And then last one, opinion.
Last one.
Costco is hands down the best store on the planet.
Oh, okay.
Best store.
People feel this way. Now, I wonder if like some Sam's Club avid members would come at you with that, but I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, everyone's got their thing, but for me, Costco, hands down. We go every week. That's our Friday night after school, after work thing. We get our stuff at Costco, and it's part of our weekly routine. We feel weird when we don't do it.
My daughter has dubbed each of us in the house something specific. So my husband is Kohl's and I'm Target and I forget what hers is, but you would be a Costco, I guess then. Yeah. That would be how you're defined.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing those 3 things. This is good. I'm really glad you gave us that first fact because it's a great segue into our conversation today, which is about infertility. And you said 1 in 6 people are affected by that. And that's such a large population. And I feel very fortunate that I haven't dealt with it, but I have so many friends who have. And that's why I really wanted to bring you on because I have seen them struggle emotionally, financially, just the ups and the downs of that. So would you mind sharing your journey, you and your husband, infertility? Just kind of give us a little bit of the story of what that experience has been like for you.
Yeah. So my husband and I met and got married we met in 2012, got married in 2014. And we knew we always wanted a family. We had some debate about how large of a family. I had always wanted a big family because I came from a big family, not an immediate family, but on one side, I've got almost 30 cousins on one side of my family. So those family gatherings and that camaraderie just was so special to me. But we also knew we wanted to take time to be married first. And so it wasn't until our first wedding anniversary that we decided yes, we're going to take that next step in our relationship, in our life, and start pursuing building our family. And we got about a year into trying on our own when we realized, okay, something doesn't seem right. Like, why isn't this happening?
Mhm.
And that's when we started to connect with my current gynecologist, and then ultimately got referred to a reproductive endocrinologist to do further testing, because it kind of took us by surprise. I mean, I will say no one plans to be infertile, which is, it takes people by surprise. But for us in particular, there's no one in our family history or our genetics that would indicate that we would have had trouble. And I
Sure.
think that is, why we see infertility be so prevalent. It affects everybody differently, and it's not a one size fits all diagnosis. There's so many different things that can go into what affects your fertility. And so we started seeing a reproductive endocrinologist. We were feeling very hopeful about our prognosis. They never told us that we couldn't get pregnant. They just didn't know why we weren't getting pregnant. And so they categorized us in this unexplained infertility bucket because, there wasn't low sperm count by my husband. There wasn't diminishing ovarian reserve for me. There wasn't endometriosis. There weren't things, there weren't clear underlying things that were preventing that from happening.
That's got to be the
And
most frustrating, I would think, just the not knowing why. At least if you know why, then it's like, okay, we know how to go forward. But that seems like that would be a tough answer.
exactly. And it was. And I will say, as I walk through, the next probably 6 or 9 months of our journey, I would say that unexplained infertility diagnosis, it negatively impacted my mental health more than the experience overall.
Mm-hmm.
That not being able to clearly define why. You go
Mm-hmm.
to the doctor and you expect, okay, you got a cold, you have strep, you have the flu. Like, it's
Yeah.
tangible things. Like, you can diagnose something. And so to go to, and it's not just a doctor, it's a specialist, someone who,
Yeah.
this is what they do. We were at a fertility clinic. Like, this is what they do. And for them to be able to say, like, they're also equally stumped, is very, it's a very out of control feeling
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
when it's something that, especially from a very early age, you are taught to consider how to prevent it.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. I was told that this was so easy. And
Sure.
it's very mentally, it's very hard to rationalize and accept that that's your reality. So, we were, like I said, we were very optimistic that, the treatments that we were going to begin would work. And that's the other thing with infertility. Like I said, it's not a one size fits all approach. So, our first approach, we went through a couple medicated cycles with just like hormone therapy,
Mm-hmm.
Clomid, which is pretty common to give to people who are experienced, we're in that unexplained category.
Mm-hmm.
And no success. So then we started having additional intervention with intrauterine insemination. And we had no success there either. And so
Mm-hmm.
as we started moving through all these treatments that continued to fail, that compounding stress, anxiety, those feelings that I was already feeling, like that I felt defective, that I felt like I failed in some way, that spread into so many areas of my life that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
expect. It wasn't just how I felt about myself and how I viewed myself, but I also felt like I didn't know how to be a wife anymore. I was questioning, is this a sign that maybe this isn't my guy? Like, is this not
Mm-hmm.
the person I'm supposed to be with? And it made it really difficult for me to even show up socially and be a friend and really feel like I could be present in the life that was happening around me, because I was so focused on what wasn't happening in my life, because it was something that I wanted so badly and was trying so hard to make happen for it to not happen. It's really hard to be present in the rest of your life when you're so focused on this one thing. And I think a lot of people who experience infertility can relate to that. And I think anybody who experiences any sort of hardship, you are dealing with debt or addiction or things like that, where you feel like you're so focused on solving one part of your life, that it's hard to see that there's a lot more going on around you. And that's really, now we're 18 months from when we first started on this journey, still with no pregnancy, no baby, and really feeling like maybe this isn't meant for us, and really having that feeling of maybe I'm not supposed to be a mom. And you start thinking about all these things that really can snowball and take a toll on your mental health as you're going through such a difficult life experience.
I think hearing that is so good for people who maybe have not experienced it to have a better understanding, like if you have a friend and they say that question of like, are you guys planning on having kids? Like, are you, they always say, be careful asking that question, because one, maybe they just don't want them, or two, maybe this is the definition of their life right now that they're working on, and like, yes, they want that, like it's, so I think that, hearing this is just a good reminder. And two, like, if someone is dealing with infertility and going through this, like knowing that there is so much emotionally, it's not just like, yeah, we're trying some things, and when it happens, that it can really totally consume you.
Yes, it definitely can. And while that question is so triggering, if someone has shared with you their journey and their experience, like truly listen, truly just be there for them. I think one thing that is definitely frustrating to people who are experiencing infertility is that lack of understanding of others. And also that lack of understanding or misconception that the alternatives are easier. That, well, you can just adopt. Adoption is not cheaper, nor is it less emotionally taxing. Also, that might not be what is going to give someone the greatest satisfaction in their life.
Yeah.
And so just because, and it also diminishes the desire to have a biological child. It diminishes that feeling of, well, wanting something on your own. You can brush that off really fast. You don't need to. That's not as important. And I understand my husband and I went through it. It's met with the best intentions, because other people in your life just want to see you happy. They don't want to see you struggle. But it's not that simple of a pivot. It just really isn't that simple of a pivot in everybody's journey to parenthood, to just adopt, or to just live child free, or just go be a foster parent instead, or the ever well-intended comment of like, well, you can have mine. It's like, well, that's, I understand you're having a hard day, but it's not the same,
Right.
So,
Right.
I just would ask of people that, genuinely support those in your life who are having struggles getting pregnant. And if you don't know anybody, just, have that consideration, because 1 in 6, I mean, if you think of just the street you live on, that could be half of your neighborhood in some instances have experienced infertility. And a lot of people think infertility only happens the first time, but there's a whole subset of women and men who experience secondary infertility. They were able to conceive on their own successfully the first time, but the second time around was not so easy. I've had several coworkers, friends, neighbors, people in the community that have experienced that as well. That's even more mind-boggling, because you've done it before, your body's done it before. How come the second time around it's not as easy?
Even when you're saying it, I'm thinking of like, oh, I forgot, like this friend dealt with it, and this person has gone through it, and hope that I can just show up as a better friend going forward, knowing this, and just be there for them. So you had kind of explained emotionally taxing, I'm guessing financially taxing as well.
Yes, for sure. So a couple things about insurance coverage with infertility. Not a lot of states include it. Ohio is one that we do have an insurance mandate, but it's for HMO plans, which I don't know of many corporations in Ohio that offer HMO plans. They're usually PPO plans, which would not be in that umbrella. And so at the time, my husband and I, we did not have health coverage for infertility through our employer. At that point, that's the only way you're going to get it, is if your employer offered it as an employer paid benefit. And so we paid out of pocket. Our insurance did cover some. Insurance largely covers just like the diagnostics, but typically does not cover medication or any artificial insemination procedures. And so we did pay for that out of pocket. And so when we got to, that second IUI that failed, our next step was IVF. And at that time, we knew financially how much it would be. Financially, we weren't prepared for it, because if you think about it, like from the time we started this to the time we got there, that was only 3 months. It was 2 cycles. And so to save $15,000 in 3 months would be very impressive to do. And so we obviously weren't financially ready to jump into IVF. And truthfully, emotionally, we weren't prepared to go into it either. There was a lot. And I was thinking about this too today, knowing that we were talking today, that I think back to that time and how much, infertility and even trying to conceive is all about timing. And I think a lot about who I was as a person in that moment versus who I am now when I finally have become a mother. I would not have been the best mother if I had gotten pregnant in that moment. Mm-hmm. I would have been, I don't know if it would have brought me relief, because I had lost so much of my identity to infertility. My identity and who I was infertility in that moment, which is part of the why I started then competing in pageants at 30, because I had lost so much of my identity to infertility. I think that's commonly what people feel who have had several months, several years long infertility journeys. They start to feel like this is who they are. It's all they could talk about. It's all they can think about. And it's just all consuming. But I think back to that time. I can still picture the day, like when I said to my husband, like, I think we need to focus on creating a life we would love with or without children. Because like right now in this moment, like I can't continue to be this version of myself. Like we can't define the happiness of our lives as to whether or not we have a child, because it's not happening right now. And so we need to find our value in other places and in other ways. And it was in that moment that financially, we couldn't do IVF at the time. And so we said, let's take a break. And I think that's something, as I've started to talk more about my experience with infertility, that is a moment that I do carry a lot of shame about. And I want to let people know that don't carry shame about having to take a break. Infertility is hard. It doesn't mean that you want it less. It just means that you're honoring your mental health and honoring the fact that this experience is hard. We needed to take a break. I needed to have that not be the thing I thought about every moment of every day. It needed to not be the thing that our intimate life revolved around either. Like I wanted to so desperately get back to being Megan and John, and not the Megan and John who are going through infertility appointments and infertility treatments and all of that. Like I wanted that sense of normalcy. Like what was life pre this experience?
Yeah. I think that's a really great piece to share with anybody who's maybe going through it. And I have previously spoken on this podcast many times about timing, divine timing, the meaning behind timing. And that doesn't downplay the want in the moment or the challenge in the moment or anything like that by any means. But I do love when we can look back in life and somehow find justification in that timing or that comfort in this was how my journey was supposed to go. And path to many things in life is not linear, and there are ups and there are downs. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And you had said then this opened up your door from pageantry, and I shared that this isn't a pageant podcast, but I still would love to hear about a little bit about that piece of this journey and how that kind of helped you get into this next chapter in your life where things start to kind of unfold to where we are today.
Yeah. So I grew up competing in pageants. So I when I was a teenager, I wanted to be Miss Teen USA. And when I finally was 18 and couldn't be Miss Teen USA anymore, I wanted to be Miss USA. And so I had, growing up in Pennsylvania, I'm born and raised in Pennsylvania, didn't move into the Midwest until I was 23 years old, and started pursuing my career in retail is kind of what brought me to the Midwest. And so I had competed in Miss Pennsylvania Teen USA, Miss Pennsylvania USA, just had those aspirations, never worked out. And so, but I always, what I take away from that desire, when I really think about what made me want to compete in pageants in general, yes, it's the glitz, it's the glam, it's so fun. Like, Miss USA, like being Miss USA, yes, like the New York City apartment and these photo shoots with Fadil, and like, yes, I want to all this stuff. Walk in New York Fashion Week, like so amazing. Yeah. But ultimately, when I looked at those women, what I admired the most about them and what I felt like was consistent across all of them, like even teens, which I'm like, oh my gosh, like some of these girls who are 15 years old and winning Miss Teen USA, I'm like, you have your stuff way more together than what I did at 15. To be able to speak that well and just perform in that way, I just didn't have it. But what I took away from all of them is that they had a strong sense of self, and they were so laser focused on doing something meaningful. They were either partnered with nonprofits, or they had nonprofits themselves, or they were or eventually became business owners. And it was just really inspirational and made me more curious about pageantry and what was it about competing in pageants that gave them those skills to do those things. Yeah. And as a teen and a miss, I didn't really understand that. I never invested in coaching at that age. It wasn't until I decided to compete at 30 that I first time ever invested in coaching and started to unpack more of this why component of competing, and not just the why of like, well, I've always wanted to compete in a pageant, but that deeper why that after that year of being Mrs. Ohio or being Mrs. Columbus or being Mrs. Gem City, like, are you going to still do the work? Like, it's not just for that moment in time. Right. And also, as someone who works in a corporate environment, there's always that continuous opportunity for professional development and development of yourself. And it's one thing to have it at work, and some of those things spill over to work that you learn into your personal life. But it was something that I was like, I want this to just be me. Like, I want to better myself because of me and my ambitions that are separate from my career and are separate from my work aspirations.
That is very much why I started. I have to say, like, you were speaking, I was like, yes, that's it. I love being Cycle Bar Sam, but I want something more.
Exactly. And so, as I've always said, through when I started coaching and started digging deeper into my why, like one phrase I would use to describe myself is that I operate from this deep belief that I'm made for more. I'm made to do more. I'm not just here to just do a job and to live a life and move on. Like, I'm here to do something. I have a deep desire in me to do something, and not just anything, but something that really could have impact and meaning. And so I signed up for Mrs. Ohio. I went and watched the pageant. I drugged my husband there. I was like, here's a side of me you've never seen. You met me at 23. You've never seen the pageant version of me. So I'm like, here we go. We're going to go watch this and do this. And I need to get you on board. And so we went and did that. But ultimately, it was that desire was stemmed from, I need to get back to me. I need to get back to where I'm experiencing infertility and I am doing this. Like, it's so common that, people will say, or therapists will say that, like, it's not an either or, it's an and. And I can be infertile and I can have happiness in my life and I can pursue other goals and aspirations. And I felt like pageantry was that opportunity for me. And so I signed up for Mrs. Ohio in 2018. It's funny, like, I coached with Rhonda Schappert, who's a former Mrs. Ohio that year. And I told her the idea for this foundation that I had. And like, I knew in that moment that I'm like, I need to speak about infertility awareness. I had this mentality of like, okay, well, if I can't get pregnant, I need to help somebody else then. And So that's the why came from there of like, if you can't do, teach. And that's how I kind of felt about starting this thought about starting this foundation one day. And so this past year, I hadn't coached with her again since that first year I competed, but this year she was a judge, and I sat down and I said, Rhonda, I did it. You know what we talked about 5 years ago, that foundation? It is a 501c3 and it is here.
Yes.
Like, I did it. And it was such an amazing moment and such a testament to like the people you can meet in pageantry that are there to push you and to connect you with other people who have done similar things that you also want to do,
Yeah.
that are going to hold you accountable and hold you accountable in a different way than what work's going to hold you accountable for.
Yeah.
And something that like you can really take away a much deeper satisfaction in what you're doing and what you're working towards through your own personal platform and your own personal mission versus, the satisfaction you get from, your job, because there's, obviously different levels of satisfaction with that. But yeah, so then I spent, 2 years. This was my third time competing for the title of Mrs. Ohio America. When I won the American title, I had never placed in those previous years competing. So, and then I'd gone to, other systems and done a few other things. But I love competing for the fact that there's always an opportunity to continue to improve. And I know everyone says you want to show up the best version of yourself, but I think the best version of yourself is an evolution. Who I was, that was the best version of myself this year. When I went to nationals, that was the best version of myself. But if I ever go back and want to compete for the America title again and go to Mrs. America, there's a different version of me. There's not one best version of yourself. That best version of yourself is going to continue to evolve because we evolve and change as people as we age and have new experiences. So I'm grateful for my experience as an adult and as a married woman in pageantry. It's done a lot for me personally, and then that has spilled over professionally too, which has been amazing.
I admittedly was very naive getting into this industry, but everything that you've spoken to was what I had hoped to get out of it, have already experienced in some level. It's just like you said, this pushing to grow, pushing to learn more about yourself, pushing for the professional development, speaking skills, interview skills, all of the above. For me, poise and grace, just things that I naturally typically don't carry around with me, but just so many great things have come from pageantry. And you had even said a while back about like these teens, like who have these platforms and are doing good and changing the world. I mean, admittedly, when I first got into it, I was like, Honey Boo Boo was like my only understanding of pageantry. And so just really learning and seeing all aspects of this industry has been really, really great. So, well, I want to hear now about your nonprofit, and then at the end, I want you to tell us about Angel Boy.
Yes,
is that what you call him?
I can tell you about him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but first, tell us about. So you have talked about creating this foundation, this nonprofit organization. So, what is your nonprofit organization? What do you do?
Yeah, so it's called Pursuit of Rainbows is the name of my platform, but the Pursuit of Rainbows Foundation is more that financial support arm of my platform. So we aim to support couples who are going through infertility in 3 ways. The big thing, financial assistance. Cost is the single biggest barrier to couples seeking infertility treatment. There are currently only 19 states that offer some sort of mandated insurance or an insurance mandate to cover care. So most Americans, unless your employer offers it, does not have access to covered care for infertility treatment. The next is advocacy efforts. So working with lawmakers to change and create more mandates in states to better provide access to care for couples. Like, in a few years, I hope that this foundation has evolved into a different way because more people have access to care. Because to me, everybody deserves that right to have a family and then also build that family in whichever way they see fit, whatever way makes sense for them. And then lastly, we provide emotional support. So like we were talking about earlier, that deeper understanding of what it's like to go through infertility. When I finally told my parents what my husband and I were going through, they had no idea what that meant. Didn't know anybody that had experienced that. So while it's very difficult to empathize with somebody when you haven't had the exact same lived experience, there's a lot of stories we have on our site that would really help people to provide that deeper understanding that each person's experience with infertility is different. Each diagnosis is different, and their path to parenthood became different. It's a good, I think, representation of how each person's experience with infertility is different, and each person's resolving their infertility is different in each situation. So those are the three things we do. So the nonprofit part of it specifically is geared to raise money. It's 100% volunteer-based nonprofit. So we're not paying salaries to anybody or anything like that. And it is to directly go to essentially fertility scholarships or grants, however you want to word it, to help people pay for their treatment. So right now we can't afford to give full IVF grants. We're still working on just getting more sponsorships and raising more money, but ideally I would love to be able to give out, full payment for people to experience, an IVF cycle without having to financially pay for it themselves. But at least if we can offset some of the cost of their experience, that would be amazing too. Because I know even just a little bit helps in what you have to pay for.
Sure. What an amazing organization. And I think really hitting on three big areas for this. It's not just one or the other, it's, all aspects of this. So how, if somebody listening wanted to support or get involved, how can they contribute to what it is that you're doing?
Yeah. So we accept donations year round. So you can get involved financially in that way. If you are in a place that you want to give, we also have opportunities if you wanted to establish a grant in your own name and have people directly apply to that. That would be amazing. But I think the biggest way that we can get involved right now that's very timely is our first fundraising event, our Pursuit of Rainbows 5K, the Run for Rainbows 5K that's happening here in Central Ohio in the spring. It's happening on April 21st, and you can find more information about that at our website, pursuitofrainbows.org. But the other way that people can really get involved is contacting your local legislators and asking them to consider expanding the access to covered care, whether you live in Ohio or in another state that doesn't have insurance mandates, because that is the fastest way that we're going to be able to have equitable access to care across the United States for people who are experiencing infertility. Just a simple letter. There's plenty of resources out there to be able to craft that letter and send it to your representative. And the more people that they can hear from, that is the need amongst their constituents, the hope that we would be able to create more change and create more access for people.
Yeah, I'm sure advocacy is huge for that. I think that's a really great, and like you said, really pretty simple. I'm sure there are even templates out there that you can use to make it as easy as possible. So I am signed up for this race. I don't run. I ride bikes, Megan. I don't run.
Hey, that's
but
okay.
I will walk.
It's a run walk. If you want to run, that's great. I think somebody else reached out to me about do we have to run? And I was like, absolutely not.
No.
My knees cannot. I ran a 4-miler on Thanksgiving Day and I was in such pain for 2 days. My knees could not handle it. So I will be walking for sure.
Yeah. That's my problem. I'm like, look, I swear I have the endurance, but my joints, I don't know. I guess you get into the 30s or something. And it's it just doesn't work like it used to. So,
it definitely doesn't.
So I do want to kind of wrap up our conversation today with Angel Boy, which is a beautiful nickname. So please tell me how you ended up with your rainbow and a little bit about the nickname and that part of your story.
Yeah. So our path to parenthood got to a point where we took that break. And then when we felt okay, we're ready we feel like we have a better outlook on it. We're very pragmatic about it of because we kind of went into it the first time being like, oh, this is going to be easy, like so easy. This time, we talked and we were on the same page about a plan of like, okay, how much time are we giving ourselves? Do we want to go through treatment again, or do we just want to continue to try on our own for however long it takes? Do we want to start exploring adoption? Like, we were on the same page about what we wanted the next time we try to be, and we decided, like, we'll go the natural route at first. We're not going to revisit the endocrinologist. We're just going to see how things go. And we ended up getting pregnant on our own that very first month, which was a total shock. In all those years of treatments, we never once saw a positive pregnancy test. So we were very skeptical about it. And that pregnancy ended in a miscarriage at about 8 weeks. And so the reason why we call Andrew Angel Boy, so that then 2 months later, we conceived again, who is now our son, Andrew. And we call him Angel Boy because I say that he was sent from the heavens. Someone sent him to us. And I remind him every day how special he is.
Yeah.
Because there's not a moment where he wasn't wanted or desired. And that I always want him to know how special he is and how, his mom and dad waited so long for him. And we're so happy that he's here. But there is a thought that the sibling or the children that come after a miscarriage are sent from the child that passed on. That's why we refer to him a lot as Angel Boy, because I truly believe he was sent here. And he's just magical to me. Even on the hardest days, like, we're in the throes of three-nager, and my God, there are some days where I'm like, ooh, you are not living up to your nickname, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And he's so cute, and I saw him. I've seen him on Instagram, and adorable, and
he's into all this pageant stuff. Anytime I tell him, I'm like, I got to go do something as Mrs. Ohio. He's like, can I come? Can I come to the pageant thing? And I was like, sometimes, like when we had the State House tree lighting last Monday, we brought him with us. He thought that was great. And now he talks about, when we did the pageant thing, like he loves being included. He loves being included in our lives in things that are outside of his, normal everyday experiences and routines. And he thinks it's so cool that his mom is Mrs. Ohio American. He thinks it's cool. So,
and it is cool, and it's cool. Wonderful. And you have a wonderful story, Megan, and I truly appreciate you coming on to share it, just again, so that other people can feel seen and feel heard, can relate, and two, if they're in it right now, see that, there can be a positive outcome and an angel baby waiting for them too when the time is right. And I just think it's beautiful that you're working to help others using your platform, your title as Mrs. Ohio American to make a difference. And so I really, really appreciate you coming on, being vulnerable, sharing the details of the story, which I'm sure are not easy. And as we wrap this up, I like to give my guests an opportunity just to leave. If there was one message that you wanted anybody listening to take away from this, what that would be.
Ooh. First thing that comes to mind is, if not now, when? And it's something that anytime I'm faced with this feeling of, you can't do that, I'm going to talk myself out of something, or tell myself I'm not qualified to do that. No, if it's not now, like, when are you going to do it? Because if you have the desire in your heart today to pursue something, and it doesn't have to be a pageant, it doesn't have to be starting a nonprofit, but if it even is a career change, a job change, pursuing a new hobby that's always been on your mind, like, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? Because there's always going to be something that comes up, stands in the way, or that just take that time to pursue your passion. There's a reason why things are placed on your heart and mind. And just do them, because if you don't do them now, who knows when you're going to be able to do them.
I love it. I try to live that way. I think sometimes my husband's like, can we calm down? It's always now for you. Can we just tone it down?
Hey, that's a life well lived in my mind.
Exactly. Megan, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show, for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to check it out, Pursuit of Rainbows. If you guys want to come run with me or do a fast walk, I will be there.
I'm sure there will be more walkers than runners. I can attest to that for sure.
But see, I'm also I also am I got that pageant blood. Like, I'm competitive. So I feel like I'm going to walk, but then I know I'm going to run, and then I'm going to hurt the next day.
Right. Right.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day, because you deserve it.